People with street smarts. What is your most street tip? Never count your cash in public even if in singles. In crowded areas, carry bags, purses and packages in front of you rather than behind you. Don't raise your voice with strangers and always be the last to speak. You don't know if these guys are wired properly or not. If an attractive woman asks for directions, look for her partner behind you or going into your car to take what they can grab. Typical vacation area scam. Lock your doors as soon as you're in your car. Walk on the road if you're in a real shady neighborhood and it's late at night. Not in traffic but away from alleyway entrances. What is the sad truth about tall people? You can see the top of everyone's fridge. The top of everyone's fridge is filthy. Bathtubs are worthless. Feeling guilty when standing at the front at a concert. Shopping carts constantly destroy our shins because our naturally longer strides force us to kick. The under basket. My back hurts. I was picked on growing up for being skinny. I'm 6'3", 170 pounds and I'm still scrawny. Pants. Plan on spending some time finding a pair long enough. And when you do, you have to buy as many as humanly possible. Also, low-hanging light fixtures. What is classy if you're rich, but trashy if you're poor? Someone else raising your kids. Police escorts. Gucci sells torn pantyhose for $200. They look like something a drunk college girl would wear after crawling out of some bushes where she just threw up. Casinos. Day drinking. If you are weird and rich people call you eccentric. But if you are weird and poor people call you crazy. How old were you when you got your first job? 15. My mom came home from date night with my dad a week into summer break and told me that I start work at the Mexican restaurant where they had dinner. The owners were family friends and they needed someone to host that spoke English. It was a 7-ish mile bike ride to get there with a big hill for the last 1/4 mile. I hated it at first until some of the kitchen staff kinda adopted me. Worked for that family on and off for the rest of high school. First real job, not mowing lawns or babysitting, was at 15. I was a busboy at Perkins. I had my first cigarette there and learned not to use hand lotion as anal lube. Via gossip, not experience. It was pretty cool. 6 holding my dad's flashlight. 16, Hy-Vee. 6. Grew up in a family restaurant. Got an actual, taxable, reportable income at the age of 12. 18. Unfortunately I got like 50 more to go. What's your personal butterfly effect story? A stroke saved my friend's life. Asterisk. She suffered a stroke. The doctors put her on blood thinners to prevent another stroke. The blood thinners caused an undiagnosed polyp in her colon to bleed. The blood in her stool prompted her to get a colonoscopy. The colonoscopy found the polyp. And many others. And they were cancerous ****. The polyps were removed. She's doing fine now. But the doctor said that if the polyps were not found, they would have developed into colon cancer. So the stroke saved her from having colon cancer. My grandmother used to take me to theater performances and encouraged me to take classes at a local community theater. I have no talent, so I went backstage at 15 and started in tech theater. She challenged me that if I read Les Miserables unabridged and give her a report on it, she would pay for a trip for me to see the show in London and go see Paris. I read it. I went to London and Paris with my father for 2 weeks. This, along with my portfolio I built in that community theater, landed me into a stellar university. The story of reading Les Miserables and being rewarded with going to Europe, the university selected me to spend a semester studying theater in London. Because I spent so much time abroad, my first job out of college was a world tour with Sesame Street. I have since done a domestic Broadway tour and a short stint with Cirque du Soleil in Europe. I have been to 48 states and 30 countries doing a career I love because my grandmother had me do a book report. My dad died in 2005. My mom put my brother and I in grief group. She met a man whose wife had died and had his kids in the same grief group. They get married in 2009. He's now my stepdad. My stepdad introduced me to a guy who works on his job site. In 2007. I married that man in 2013. We now have 2 kids together. We also introduced our 2 best friends who are also married and have a kid. Thanks, Dad. Heart. I met my wife through a mutual friend. That mutual friend and I both play the same LARP. I got into that LARP via a different friend in 2008. I met that friend when I was 6 years old. If I had not met that friend when I was 6 years old, I may never have gotten into that LARP. Never would have met the mutual friend. And thus would have never met my wife. My dad is 64 in 2 months. He has played soccer since he was young. He went to a dinner with his old soccer buddies and they convince him to play a match with them. He hasn't played in over 10 years. He runs every day, so he decided it was a solid adult decision. 10 minutes in, he gets kicked in the calf and comes off. 1 hour later he leaves. Passes out in the parking lot. He thought he just tripped and fell. Drives home and tells my mom his leg is sore. 30 minutes later, he is breathing like someone who has the wind knocked out of him. Late night visit, they find he has a burst vein in his calf. Can't understand the pain in his chest or bad breathing. Run some bloods. He has a clot in his lung. Doc says it was there for a while, and had he not come in, he may have just not waken up one morning. Unfortunately, his man brain just sees his decision to play footy as a life-changing decision and not the stupidity that it was. Not mine but my aunt. She was always on time to everywhere. It's trauma left over from her childhood. She lived in the Bronx and worked in Lower Manhattan. That's like a 45/60ths of a minute subway ride. So she usually had to get up pretty early to get to work on time. One night, the power in her building went out. Zero idea why. To this day she lives in the same building and no one knows why. It was the only building affected. Her digital alarm had reset when the power came back on at dawn, so her alarm did not wake her up. She woke up at 7:30 a.m. with 30 minutes before she should be at work. Panicking, she got ready and ran to the subway. The subway by her apartment was having maintenance issues and she got stuck for 20 minutes 3 stops away. For the first time in her life, she loves her job. She called into work sick, saying she'd be in too late and would work overtime the next day. She walked back to her apartment and fell asleep. She woke up about 4 hours later when one of my other aunts was pounding on her door. She answered the door. My other aunt was hysterical because she hadn't been answering her phone. And that's how a weird electrical mishap caused my aunt's alarm clock to reset, making her late, missing her train, and avoiding being in the building next to the World Trade Center on 9/11. Edit. Typo. What are your thoughts on a 4-day work week? Working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday was the best, never more than 2 days in a row. Sounds nice. Forever praying it becomes a real thing and there will be this big shift in work-life balance that we so desperately need. But I know it'll never happen, so I'll forever be depressed knowing my life will be wasted working for the majority of it. My dream of remote work happened. My next dream is 4-day work week. Getting 1 extra day off makes a big difference to relaxing, then have more energy to work and focus more. Yes please. 32-hour work weeks should be the norm. Subscribe, my brothers.